Good afternoon, everybody. I said good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you very much, class. I'm thrilled to see so many great Red Crossers here today and friends of the organization. My name is Josh Lockwood. I'm the regional CEO for the American Red Cross in Greater New York. As many of you know, we're the busiest region for the American Red Cross around the nation. We have about 5 to 20 disaster responses every single day of the year. That's everything from a single family home fire to an epic event like a Superstorm Sandy. Also, many of you know that in our disaster response here and around the country, we commonly send our volunteer corps, which is 500,000 strong around the nation, and our staff to disasters around the country to serve people when the greatest need is called for. And we are so proud to have volunteers and staff going back and forth around the country, even today, coming in and out of airports. But occasionally, there are significant events around our country that bring us all to a standstill and to pause for a moment about the suffering of our fellow Americans in a particularly fraught moment. And that was certainly true during the worst mass shooting in American history in Orlando on June 12th. So I think many of you know we have 3 heroes from that event who are here today and are speaking to us about their experiences, both on that day and moving forward. And we've been able to meet on the ground there when I deployed there on June 12th as well. But then also have been really bringing lessons learned to the community of Orlando and around the country in the weeks and months since. We had a panel yesterday where we had a similar conversation, and these guys really stirred the audience with some of their thoughts and reflections on that event. And so without further ado, I want to introduce Neema. I'm not going to know your last names off the top of my head.
It's fine.
But Neema, Neal, and Brian. So let's give them a warm Red Cross welcome. And Neema, Neal, and Brian are joined by Tiffany and Carlos, is that right? Friends from the Orlando community who have been here to support our heroes as the Red Cross recognizes them at our big gala at the Natural History Museum as our National Heroes of the Year. And you guys may or may not know this, but we bring together a panel of supporters, volunteers, and they look at hundreds of news articles of heroes around the country. And of all the stories that they heard, these volunteers selected you guys. And so it's really a thrill for us to put you on our biggest stage and recognize all that you've done. I know you guys are more modest than and are sort of hesitant at times to be called a hero, but I think when we hear about their experiences, you'll all agree that these are truly heroes. And so, Neema, maybe I'll start with you since you're sitting next to me. Neema, obviously here at the Red Cross, we see human suffering on a regular basis. That's what we're trained to do. But if you reflect on the evening of June 12th, and all of us only want you to share what you're comfortable sharing, when did you know something was going wrong, and how do you summon strength within yourself to respond and help others at such an unbelievable moment?
Well, do I need to put this one? This one? All right. Well, when June 11th, that night around 1:50, I was walking towards the front door area, and a lot of people just love how different DJs mix music, not knowing what you can get from a song or what's in between a song. And immediately right in between one of the songs, usually our DJ that's on the patio plays gunshots to mix into the next song. So when as I was walking to the front door area to cash out the register, I noticed it was multiple shots in between music, but the music was still playing. So immediately in my head, I thought it was the DJ blending his music in as normal. Then I noticed a young man come through our front door area shot. And at that point, I started to do what was known to me, put myself last and put the people in front of me first by evacuating the front area, getting the police officer, and start helping as many people out as possible.
Thank you, Neema. And Neal brings a distinguished record of military service to his role at the club. So first, thank you for your service. The Red Cross has a Service to the Armed Forces program, which you may know supports service members in emergency situations around the world. But Neal, how did you react in that moment, given your training, to what, to all of us seemed just an impossible thing happening around you?
Well, just like Neema was saying, it was about 15 minutes to 2 a.m. and I decided to leave the patio and go to the Adonis Lounge. And as I was going to the Adonis Lounge, I saw how packed it was. And so I was just standing there kind of on the dance floor, and I looked at my watch. It was like 2 minutes to 2. And next thing you know, I hear what I thought was a AK-47, because I'm extremely old. So they didn't have the AR-15 at the time when I was serving. So, and even as a police officer. So when I heard, I knew it wasn't music. So I looked back at the DJ, DJ Flawless, and told him to cut the music. And when he cut the music, it just wouldn't stop. It just kept going. So I told everybody to get down. Once I looked at the doors and I saw that nobody was coming in, then I looked to my left and I saw the flash. So I knew they were in the main dance floor area. So that's when I told everybody to get up and follow me, and I took them out the back. I took them out the back gate. After I got that first group of people out, I went back in, got a second group of people out, and then I went back in the third time. But yeah, I knew what was going on.
Thank you. And Brian, you had in your past, you had told us you had been just a customer, a patron at the club over time, and knew all the folks there really well, and had a close connection, as you all did, with the club. How did you collect yourself amid such a horrific event?
It started just as every other normal night, a night out at the club, having fun with your friends, seeing people dance, laugh, have a drink. As they mentioned, it was almost time for us to close down for the evening. We closed down things a little earlier than you do here in New York. And I happened to be out on the patio with Tiffany. Tiffany's one of our bartenders, and I was helping her finish up her closing duties. And that's when I heard the first gunshots. And we looked dead in each other's eyes, and it was difficult. We didn't know what was going on. We were very confused at first. It took us a few minutes to kind of realize what was going on, to figure out where it was, what was going on. And it took a lot of strength, a lot of courage from all of us to, Neal was running back and forth. We were behind the bar for a short period of time, and then we were able to get as many people as we could off of the patio area. We happened to be out on the patio. And when we got through that patio gate, the police were already there in full presence. They were getting as many people out as they could as well. Our friends were hurt, scared, confused. We just grabbed each other and got out of there. And one of the first things you think of when you get yourself out of the building is, I thought about my staff who was there that night, my friends. Immediately went into trying to call and contact people. I was able to contact some of my staff that were trapped in the building, in different areas of the building. And I know Neema had worked with the police that evening as well to kind of sketch out the building. And we were on the phone, and I have 5 staff members in this room. I have 2 staff members upstairs hiding in the office. There's 1 person injured. There may be 1 person that was killed. And we just kept going and trying to relay as much information as we could. We were out of harm's way at that point, but we needed to make sure that all of our friends and staff were also, able to make it out as quickly and safely as possible.
Thank you. And in the first sort of 24 hours after an event like this has occurred, how did you all spend that time? Were you processing information? Were you just confused or seeking information? Neema, how in that first day, what were you doing?
I really didn't have a chance to process the information because at that point I was already making my house a safe house for our staff, and it was flooding in with people that were coming to help us. So the main thing was I kept watching the TV to see who was injured, who was not with us anymore. And, you look at a list of people, then go, wow, I didn't even know they were there. Wow. It doesn't register in your head. And at that point, my house started getting all the donations, and my garage was getting filled with bottled water and supplies for the staff and packages that we need for the victims. So I really didn't even have downtime to even think. The only second I really had is when they told me that I lost my best friend of 15 years. He was the first name listed. And then from there on, I just knew that it was time to kick gears and do what I had to do.
And Neil, how about for you, for that first day after, how were you spending that time?
Pretty much the same. I really, I don't even think I've processed it yet. Yeah. It was just going into action and just keep doing what I could do. That's really was it. Like he said, watch the news. We were contacting each other back and forth about certain things and what we're going to do or how we're going to do this, and what's going on with the building, and that kind of thing, and trying to get our cars and employees' cars, and so it wasn't it wasn't 24 hours or even 48 hours to I don't know who's processed this yet. Yeah. I know I haven't.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And Brian, just building off of that, it's now we're, I guess, 3 months on. I'm just curious about, and at the Red Cross, we support communities in recovery from a mental health perspective, but do you have a sense of, do things hit you in waves? It's something you think about, every single day?
It's definitely, to this day, I think, like you said, I think we're all still trying to process exactly. We still have answers, questions, and don't have all the answers to this day of exactly what took place or, exactly why things took place. And it's one of those things that it's very hard because best way I can explain it is it's a roller coaster of emotion, and it doesn't, it can be I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm hurt. And that comes in waves sometimes within 2 minutes. It's not a daily, an all day thing. It's I can smile and I can joke around and hug and go out and dance. And it's just one sound or one sight or just seeing somebody that you used to see at the club every night or just out and about, that will bring on a whole nother wave of emotion. But it's very hard to and difficult to deal with. But I think that thankfully we have a lot of great sources in Orlando for our staff and our community that are really, truly trying to make sure that, mental health wise, we are, taken care of. They have so many different services. Our staff, we encourage our staff to go. We've had group sessions where the staff will all go together, and it's a little bit more of a loose setting, but they bring people in to speak with us to make sure we're doing okay.
And for all of you, I think one thing that would help us as Red Crossers to understand is what has given you solace and comfort. Is there specific services you sought, or that your friends have sought, or what has buoyed your spirits and your resilience?
I think the community coming together is really helping us a lot. I mean, just being together, we work together, in some cases 4 or 5 nights a week together. We are a very close staff. Long before this happened, I mean, this is like our family. We did everything together. We still try to do things together. We meet up, weekly still. Days after this happened, weeks after this happened, Neema opened his house for us because, as you can imagine, when this happened, there was so much confusion and we didn't know what was going on. And I know New Yorkers are used to not having cars, but we were, none of us had a way to get around town. All of our cars were stuck at the scene for three weeks.
Yes.
And phones.
Yeah.
Phones, cell phones. Yeah. We had, we had no way to communicate with each other besides, computers at home. So the days after everything, it was very difficult for us to even all get together. And, Neema opened his house for the staff, and that was the first time that we had been back together. And it was really nice. It was something we all needed. We needed to sit there. We needed to see each other. We needed to hug, cry, and have a drink.
Neema, how about for you? Can you point to anything that's helped you or the community in particular?
It's been an overpouring of love from the community and the world, not just the community, our community, but I get messages from people in Paris, from the Middle East, where my dad's family lives. So it's not just Orlando, but it's all over. But I really, to me, I focus on taking a tragedy and making it a positive. So whatever I can do to take what has happened, I like to shift it around to make it better for the future. Mm-hmm. So I just been focusing on my charity and our One Pulse Foundation and trying to empower kids to love. So it's been an ongoing process for me for that. So that kind of keeps my mind completely busy.
And Neal, for you, are there things that have supported you along the way, or as you said, your training, did that sort of kick in at a certain point? Or
yeah, I mean, I have 18 years of law enforcement, so like I said yesterday, if you don't even think, you just do it, then you think about what you did later, but you just, when your job is to protect people, that's just what you do. You don't, you just don't get to think like maybe I need to move. You just want to make sure other people get out of the way, and it's just a soldier's mentality. You just, when you join the military, the first thing they do is they take common sense and everything else out of your head and put what they want in. Yeah. So that's just how I am, Mm-hmm. So.
Neema, you had mentioned your charity. Maybe you could talk about how that came about and sort of what the message you're trying to convey is.
So 2 days after the tragedy, I opened the front door to my house, and on the door was this heart with a card. And it was made by 3 little kids in my neighborhood. They hung this heart. I have the original at my house, and it's called Love is Love. It's kids making a difference, showing you that kids love you regardless. So we started workshops. This built the charity. We started workshops that the kids come to build these hearts out of felt, string, and ribbon and card. And we put them in organizational groups where we give them conversation starters so they can have conversations with kids they don't know, how to start a conversation, how to teach them to love regardless of who they are, their gender, their race, their religion background, their sexual orientation. We're still one community, one world. So this is a great organization that I wish everybody can follow on Instagram. It's called Hang a Heart, and it just empowers kids to love regardless of who you are. So our workshop has blossomed to thousands of kids have been joining on to making hearts, and we pass these out everywhere we go.
That's great. Well, thank you for doing that. One thing we've noticed is that all three of you are now polished public speakers and are used to sitting in front of big audiences. And I know at times you've spoken in front of tens of thousands of people. And I'm curious for the three of you, just in taking on any sort of public role in the event afterwards, is that something that you sort of is important to you or makes you comfortable or uncomfortable? Addressing crowds and sharing your experiences and what you've learned. Can you speak to that, Brian, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, it's something, obviously it can be difficult. It's still very fresh to a lot of us. It's in some instances, it seems like it's just happened yesterday. And it can be difficult to relive, but I think it is important to share our story. We want to spread the message of love. I mean, we want to keep these 49 people's memories going with us, and it's something that I don't think any of us ever really wanted to do, but we're proud to do it. We're proud to be here. We're proud to be able to share our story, to just love it, just be with everybody. And it's a few days following what happened in Orlando, I think that was one of our biggest crowds that we had, and they put a little vigil together within a day, and 50,000 people surrounded Lake Eola in downtown Orlando. We walked on that stage, and it was very touching, very beautiful, but very difficult.
Yeah.
And but just to look out on 50,000 people from all over, just showing love, no matter if we were gay, if we were straight, they were just there to show love and support. And it was a beautiful sight, something I'll never forget.
And the funny thing is that night started a pattern of seeing rainbows, I think. In Orlando, you rarely look up and see, oh, it's raining, you'll see a rainbow. That night over the lake was this amazing rainbow. And ever since that night, everywhere we've ever gone, I've seen hundreds of rainbows in Orlando now. And it just doesn't stop, especially over Pulse. You always see, when you go to visit the site, a beautiful rainbow.
It's amazing. One thing I noticed in the days after vigils, it seemed there were several a night, which I'm sure you guys went to so many of them, and seeing survivors who either volunteered or were asked to speak at those events. And I think for those of us at the Red Cross, we always want to be really sensitive to, you guys have been through an incredible ordeal, and as have other survivors, what's appropriate or not appropriate or comfortable. Did it, in your experiences, was it a cathartic experience for you and for others to share their story so quickly after the event? Neil, do you have any thought on that?
I think in some ways it's therapeutic in some ways. Because I can't speak for them, but I know me personally, I'm still holding some things inside. Because I'm not trying to direct a horror film, so a lot of things that happen or that I did or that I've seen, I keep to myself. But it is, to me, therapeutic to get it out sometimes. Yeah. So it doesn't actually bother me. No.
I think if it's in a positive way, I didn't share my story because I thought that being a parent, a brother, a sister, an aunt, an uncle, whoever it was that lost a family member, listening to multiple different stories of how their family member died, I thought it was just inappropriate. So what I did was immediately started going to rallies, events, benefits, fundraisers, and speaking at what we can do to change and help the people. And, you know, there were so many stories out there, what happened, and I just thought it was very inappropriate to hear a different version, or people that weren't even there giving their version that was not true. I mean, why would you want to live that as a family member, to hear so many different ways of how your child died? I think it's just wrong. I think we should just let the facts be the facts and not make a story for fame for yourself, you know? So, and that's what I felt like a lot of people did. When they saw a camera, they jumped right in front of it. And that's not what we did as Pulse staff. We wanted to make sure that, you know, our victims and our families and our staff were taken care of first. And then, you know, we can move forward by seeing what we can do to change.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. You know, just for folks here to understand what the Red Cross role is in an event like this is, typically we'll work with governmental agencies, in this case, the mayor of Orlando and his team, to stand up something called a Family Assistance Center. And that's where survivors and victims' families go to find out the fate of missing loved ones. And so that locally, that's happened recently after the East Village building explosion, the Harlem building explosion, the Metro North train crash that happened last year. And one thing that's required of us as Red Crossers is to be empathetic and culturally sensitive to all different dynamics. I think in this instance, what was unique for me to see is that we had large extended Latin families waiting to hear the fate of missing loved ones in a cramped family assistance center. And there were a lot of families. There were 49 people killed in this instance. And so, you know, these families are hoping against hope to get good news. And sadly, in this instance, tragically, no one seemed to get good news. So they were receiving death notices from governmental agencies and the police, and then processing that information along either a Red Cross mental health volunteer or a mental health volunteer from another great not-for-profit who may have been there. But Brian, maybe I'll turn this question to you. One dynamic that emerged from the Family Assistance Center was, and that required sensitivity from our workforce at the Red Cross and everyone else, was many families who were flocking to the Family Assistance Center. This was the first time they were hearing that a loved one was gay or may have been gay or at the club. And for the Orlando community, I'm just wondering, what was it like to sort of grapple with that dynamic, which I know we all did?
It was difficult. A lot of, as you mentioned, a lot of people came to Pulse. It was a place for them to be able to be themselves. With that being said, them being themselves at Pulse, a lot of them were not openly gay to their families, or their families did not live here in the United States. And it was difficult because a lot of families, I think, hearing that a loved one was killed or injured, and then hearing that they were at a gay establishment, it kind of opened up some wounds for a lot of families. And some families were okay with that. Some families were not okay with that. And there was a lot of going back and forth. We, as a staff, you know, just tried to be there for the family no matter what, day in, day out. But there were difficult moments. I mean, as you can imagine, people wanted answers. We didn't have answers at that point, and it was difficult. I know Neema also had a little direct contact with that as well as with families and
a lot.
Yeah.
It's hard to it's difficult to deal with. You're dealing with a shooting, a mass murder, and then you're dealing with a family member that had no clue that their son or daughter was gay, and then you're dealing with a language barrier, and then you're dealing with whys. Why? So it was, you know, we had brought in interpreters that literally were like, I don't even know how to interpret this. This is not, you know, the parents are like, what? My child's not gay. My child's not gay, you know? And being in 2016, you think that a lot of people are more accepting, which it felt like, as being a gay individual at a gay nightclub, working at a gay nightclub. And then you notice that really there's still people that are hiding behind that door that don't want their families to know. And they also do come from religious backgrounds, and they do come from families that just don't accept it. So it's still out there, and we experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, just touching on that as well, I mean, Pulse is literally an open door. We're a gay nightclub, but I mean, everyone across the board comes to us. We've always been a place where you can take your mom, you can take your dad to the club, and you don't have to be ashamed. We had, I never thought my dad would ever go to a nightclub, and he actually sat down and watched an entire drag show pageant at the bar. But he enjoyed himself so immensely. And it's one of those things where I never thought I'd have that moment with my parents, to be able to sit in a club and my mom, my dad, laugh, joke around, hug, see my mom dancing on the dance floor, trying wigs on in the back, it was just, it's something that it's a place that you could. So not everyone that was there that evening was gay. Tragically, a good friend of ours, she was there with her son who was gay, and she ended up not making it. She pushed her son out of the way, but she used to come on a regular basis just to dance with her son, because she enjoyed seeing him happy, meeting his friends, and just living life, and that's what it was all about at Pulse. It truly was. We were a family as a staff, but Orlando seems huge to everybody because it's so, Disney and all the theme parks, but our community in Orlando is very small and very, very, tight. We all grew up the past 10 years around each other, going out, and now we're all kind of taking on these roles as managers in the at different clubs or here and there. And I think it's a great time in Orlando because we did all grow up together, and we truly are like a family. And I think that's what, after all this happened, where a lot of our strength came from, because we could go back on those friendships that we built over the years.
And you've been saying, I think the three of you have mentioned that you were struck by the outpouring of support in Orlando and around the world. How was that a surprise to you, Neil? I haven't talked to you in a bit. Was that a surprise to you to see the days after and the weeks after that outpouring of support?
Yeah, it was definitely a surprise to me. I would have never guessed that, so many people would have got involved, no matter what their beliefs are or their personal thoughts. It seemed like a lot of people just dropped that and tried to help out as much as they could and tried to bring the community together, and it did. And going back to what Neema said about the rainbows, it's like the community wasn't getting that type of support, and now it's like you can't go anywhere without seeing a rainbow or a heart in a store's window or something like that, or they're putting one pulse on their banner or something. So yeah, it was definitely a big outpour of love for the community, definitely.
And Neema, I know you had mentioned that it's affected, this experience has affected your closeness to some of your family members as well. Can you speak to that?
Well, my mom was never a fan of going to gay bars, or I come from a family that was born and raised in Tehran, Iran, which is, they're immigrants of Middle Eastern culture that is very Muslim. So, when my parents originally found out that I was gay, we were not to talk about it ever since. I started my career when I was 18 in the gay club business and became an entertainment manager at 18 at a club in Daytona Beach. And I've been hosting shows for a while now, and my mom has never came to any of one of my shows, or on my events, or a pageant that I own, or a concert that I threw, or nothing. So when this happened, now she's attached to my hip, and you keep dreaming for that moment, and then you get the moment, and you're like, lady, give me a minute, you know? So now she wants to wear the Pulse shirt, she wants to hold a rainbow, she wants to maybe build a tutu and walk down the street. I don't know, like, it's awkward. So, but she came the day of when I had the staff over, and she's like giving drag queens hugs and you know, giving everybody food and giving them packages. And I'm like looking at her going, wow, people do change, you know, and we have to keep empowering people to understand that you can change. And my mom is a big example of that. And she now just doesn't leave me alone. So if anybody wants to borrow her, yeah, she's available.
On that note, I think I'll open, so I don't dominate the questions. If there are folks who have questions for our heroes, and I should mention that if you can't get enough and you want to see these guys at the gala, we have the gala tonight, and then we're making an appearance tonight on, if anyone knows the show, Watch What Happens Live on Bravo. The four of us will be briefly behind the bar in front of three people who've been incredibly supportive of the Orlando community: Andy Cohen, Kelly Clarkson, and Melissa Etheridge. So that'll be live tonight. You can stay tuned. Richard.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, 49 people lost their lives. What about the ones that now have permanent injuries, disabilities? How is that being processed or whatever?
Thankfully now everyone is now out of the hospital. There was 53 injured, and I believe it was just last week that the last person did leave the hospital. There's a lot of people have still have needs that they, you know, rehabilitation, things of that nature. We had a few of our staff members that were injured that night as well. I think it's different for every family, and one of the hardest parts about that is when everything happened, the 49 names were announced, but it was very difficult because we didn't know who was in the hospital for privacy reasons. They would not provide us that information. So it was over time, we kind of found out people where they were. We'd go visit them. But there's still a huge support system in Orlando. There's multiple funds. The One Pulse Foundation now is, you know, goes to multiple things, and Neema can touch on that a little bit if you want. The One Pulse. Yeah,
it's so our owner started Pulse because her brother died of HIV, and she wanted his Pulse to still be racing. So she opened up a nightclub that has dedicated a lot to the AIDS Foundation, Cancer Society, and we do multiple charity events throughout the whole entire year to raise money for all good different causes. And so when all this happened, she formed the One Pulse Foundation, which is now formed more organizations that are trying to control gun control by getting rid of machine guns and guns in our world that should not be in certain people's hands. And then we also have the foundation that has given out multiple checks to our victims before the One Orlando Fund, and has helped all the victims that do not speak English and their families to cope with by giving them counseling and helping them in any way possible by donations or whatever they need. And also we've been helping, which everybody keeps forgetting about, is the first responders, because the first responders have literally gone through more than, I mean, what we have. They've seen more than what we did, and people keep forgetting about that. And there's no aid for the first responders. So we set up meetings with our first responders to give them thanks, and they did a barbecue for us. They didn't have to, which we went and spread love. And now we're trying to do what we can do to help them out, because a lot of them have not been back to work, and the city has not helped them. So we're just trying to do what we can at this point with the One Pulse Foundation.
Thank you, Neema. Just a little Red Cross inside baseball too, Richard. One thing is, in a mass casualty event like this, a mass shooting event, typically the Red Cross does not fundraise. So, for example, when I was down in Orlando, I had donors from New York City calling me and saying, you know, we'd like to make a gift to support all the work the Red Cross is doing. But we don't, in that situation, we don't want to be perceived as somehow benefiting from the suffering that's happening. And so we were directing folks to the One Pulse Foundation as well. Peter, I saw that you had a question. Peter's a board member, a longtime volunteer with us, and brought me to the Red Cross, so thank you, Peter.
One of the hard things for the Red Cross after a disaster is to know how much to do. Do you push and do more than seems appropriate, or do you risk doing too little? Do you have any feedback for us or for other groups who are doing mental health in the first few days, what we could do better?
Well, I had days after the Family Assistance Center had opened up in Orlando with FBI assistance, and they had kind of everything all in under one roof for us to go get assistance. Red Cross was there present literally the days following, and they were a huge support to, I know, not just our staff, but the family members directly following that. It was one of those things that I think it's more of an individual type basis. I think, like I said, some people are willing to get that help, the mental health assistance. Some don't think they need it, but I think it's one of those things that, and myself, I've gone to speak to somebody a few times, but then I say to myself, oh, I don't need to do it, and then I have to push myself again. But I know in the long run, it's some people need to speak with the days after, a month after, a year after. So I think it's going to be a long-term thing for everyone that was involved. So, I mean, I think the Red Cross did an amazing job just really being there from day one and getting the information out to everyone that was involved in Orlando and providing them with the information for the long term. It wasn't just a short-term thing. They made sure that we were all aware of that if we needed anything, months down the road, that, the Red Cross was always there to help them. So.
Thank you. And Peter, one interesting dynamic from a Red Cross perspective is we had so many mental health volunteers who deployed to Orlando in those first days, who had experience from the Newtown school shooting, the Boston Marathon bombing, the Charleston church shooting. These events sadly have become more common in our country, in our society, that it was so sad to see these volunteers who brought this valuable but heartbreaking experience to the Orlando experience.
I was curious, I'm a responder, and you had mentioned the loss of your cars and your cell phones. What are other things that you would have preferred, and I'm not trying to make light of this, that would have made life easier during that time? Like you mentioned knowing the names of the folks that were in the hospital. Are there other things that like the community or responders would do better at or did great at?
Well, when we were, after we were bused to the police station, you got to realize that a lot of us didn't have any way to communicate with our families. And I had my cell phone personally. My car was still at the property. And when we got into the police station, they gave us a blanket to share. And they also, took a 10-minute report and then opened the front doors and said, okay, you're good to go. Well, when we stepped outside, where am I going? So I didn't have a cell phone battery to charge. I didn't have a cord to charge my phone. So at that point, we didn't know nothing was going on, and people keep forgetting about that part too, because I'm still upset about it. Like being opened a door and kind of told, fend for yourself as we walk into reporters, and then you have to like hide yourself for a second because everybody wants that one story, which is fine. You have to do your job, but at least charge my phone for me, or let me call my mom from your landline or something, And then my sister showed up finally from Daytona and drove me and friends back to my house. But at that point, we really were just trying to contact our families. and to tell our families that we're okay, because families were blowing up our social media, our cell phones, leaving messages. I mean, I don't know about two of our staff members are here too, also survivors, that we all were sitting in that room trying to figure out what happened, and I just really wish that we did get the list of people that were injured, because a lot of them blame us for not reaching out to them, but we can't reach out to somebody that we don't know who is. So we really wish that the FBI did give us that list of people so we could reach out and say, hey, we're here for you. We couldn't do that. We had 49 names, and that's all we had.
Yeah, I want to go to your point about taking something that was very tragic and horrible and finding the good in it, if there could be any. Do you find that, like, what happened there and the outreach you've experienced and the foundation work that you're doing has impacted in a positive way other national and global day community, where people are saying, you've given us strength, where more people are coming out, and you've given us strength to give voice to our organizations? Have you seen any of that happening?
Actually, yeah. A lot of organizations have stepped up to help us, but the thing is that my opinion is that our root of our problems is how we educate our children. That's just my opinion. But it's true. It's how we teach our kids how to love. It's how we teach our kids. Like, have you ever, when we were little, we taught how to tie a shoe. I was taught with 2 hoops, tie it over and tie my shoe. Some people were taught, I'm sure, with 1 hoop, wrap it around. We were all taught differently, right? So what's the difference between that and love? Our parents teach us that. So educating our kids to love regardless of who you are is the most important thing, because moving forward, we won't have hatred in our world.
And I know a lot of people in Orlando and all over the world, I mean, a lot of people stepped up to help us, and they still are doing a lot. I'm not sure if, I know it was publicized a lot in Orlando, and but every person that was in the hospital, our Florida hospital system, none of them were billed for anything. Whatever their insurance companies did not cover, if they did not have insurance, nobody was billed, which was amazing.
Yep.
It's things like that. Money is not everything, but to have that one less burden on their shoulders, I thought that was an amazing thing that the Florida hospitals did for everybody who was, impacted. And that was, I'm not sure if it was really publicized as much all over. We're kind of in a bubble in Orlando sometimes.
Well, there was that doctor that refused to take off his shoes until the last patient was out. All the physicians, the nurses, they all donated, their time to help. Nobody wanted to bill those victims. And I thought that was just amazing how people really stepped up and said, we're going to do what we need to do to help, because they care. And that's important.
Fred.
This is really to you, Josh.
Uh-oh.
There is a HIPAA rule during disasters that the Red Cross can get that information. I don't know whether this type of shooting would come under that or not, but that's something we should look at.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, that we're able to work as a neutral party directly with hospitals. So we'll look into that. That's a great idea. Yes.
The nightclub is so important to the community. Where is the community going now to socialize?
Well, we do events. The amazing Abbey Theater is downtown Orlando, has given us their space. We've been doing our college and Twisted Tuesday nights, we call it, combined on Tuesday nights there every Tuesday. And then I throw a huge Latin event once a month, and I bring Latin people love freestyle music. And they love bringing their parents out. So we do the old 80s and 90s type, 80s, 70s, 90s type music. And we bring, a lot of singers have donated their time to come sing. And we've been doing fundraisers once a month. And this Saturday's Pride. So in a couple days, we're leaving tomorrow to set up for Orlando Pride. And we have, we're the official after party. And it's a huge charity event that One Pulse is throwing for the victims.
Wiki.
You guys are representing your community, and we ask the same thing of New Yorkers all the time. So when faced with this challenge, given your situation, we have as well diversity situations that we face, given like Chelsea that just happened with explosives and other things happening in New Jersey, similar to Orlando. So if people think about those kind of things, they present it with fear, right? So there's a fear to represent your community and step up to be an ambassador of a mission, right? This is what we do with the Red Cross all the time. What would you say is a suggestion to help a person get through that fear of representing their community?
Be proud of who you are. I know following the days after, I was very hesitant to talk to the media. I kind of made it a passion of mine. I didn't feel that I could properly relay how I felt through a camera lens. I'm more of a direct person. I like to be there and hug my friends and talk with them and laugh with them, cry with them. So it was difficult for me, kind of being, obviously, nobody wants to be the face of a tragedy. But at one point or another, you have to do it for your friends. You have to do it for yourself. You need people to open their minds and their hearts. And I think that all of us, that's probably our main goal when we go out and we speak, is to just show the love, spread the love, show the love. And Neema's been traveling all over the world. He was here for New York Pride. It's just something, it's scary at first. Like I said, I don't think any of us want to be the face of a tragic event, but
and you really got to deal with people that, I'm not a touchy-feely type person, and my staff knows that. Like, I'm just get off me, I was that type of person, and sometimes you're just like, now in a different situation, you're dealing with people that really care, that want to hug you. And I've learned to open up with that, because now I go to events and people are crying that don't even know anybody that was there, because they have feelings, and they have concern. So now I've been hugging all over the US, and it's opened me up more to accept who I am. And it takes time. People don't understand that. And I think it's important that we do spread a positive message, that we can take a tragedy and make it into a positive, and what we can do to change it. What can we do to further us as individuals in our community and say, listen, I can do this now, so this will not happen. And that's what our goals are. No, she needs to stop hugging me alone.
Well, last question, sure.
As a young person, I think that I understand the value of going out with friends and making memories, even with your parents, as you said. I've never experienced that, but that would be great. So do you feel that this experience has kind of taken the joy of making memories and experiencing things with your friends? Has this taken that joy away, or do you feel that you guys are turning it into something that becomes a positive, where you have events for charities, that sort of thing? There is a little bit of both. Like, as a young person, I completely understand how it could take that away, but I'm just curious where you guys are at with that.
That's a good question, because the funny thing is, we didn't think that the younger generation, meaning like under 25 and under to 18, that would understand. Now we have a 5-year-old walking that is holding a rainbow that understands. And it's important that, they know that what we've done moving forward has nothing for us. We haven't done benefits that are really profiting for us. The donations we got for Pulse were from people, but what we're doing is pushing forward to help others, to educate our youth, to tell our community that, we're here for them. Every charity event that we do on Tuesdays and the Saturday events are all going for people. And it's not going for us. I don't know if you agree, or you guys agree, but we put everybody in front of us before we think of ourselves. That's how I was taught, and that's how we've been educated from our amazing boss, to just always put everybody forward, and that's what we've been doing. But I love the youth question, because people always say, I'm young and I'm in this community and I don't know, what's going on, and I don't understand. But now they're understanding.
Right.
Yeah, and you're the stepping stone of what's going to happen in 10 years. You're going to turn to us and say, oh, you know, I totally understand you now. When you hit over 30, you're like kind of screwed, but you know, then you're like in the gay world, you're 35, you're like, oh, now I'm never going to find anybody. And then 40, you're just like, just get cats, you know? So how old are you?
I'm 20.
Oh.
I'm over 40.
Are you married? You're married, yeah. I'm 35, single. I have 2 dogs. So, but I get it. Like, I love that because are you a volunteer?
I'm an intern.
Oh, intern. Okay. So, but you're interning for a good cause. So, and I love that. So, keep doing what you're doing.
Well, this has been, you guys are such an inspiration to all of us. We really appreciate you sharing your story, which I know is not always easy. And it's such a thrill for us to be able to fly you up here and celebrate you on our biggest stage. So the fun continues tonight, but thank you again for taking this time. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. I need a drink.
2 of them.